Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Danny K here, SonicFlare. What's happening? Grab your favorite drink, grab your favorite coffee. I have my Julius Meinl from Vienna. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I think it's only fitting that for my very first hardware review that I'm doing for SonicFlare here, I'm going to pick something that's truly incredible, something that is what I would call a genuine technology disruption in the world of high-end audio. And when you look at it from the perspective of technology disruption, there really isn't much in the way of high-end audio getting disruptive, right? There are surely technologies that get better with time, driver technologies, amplifier stuff that gets better a little bit every, iteration. But it's really rare for a technology to come into high-end audio and genuinely disrupt the existing notion of how you do things, right? From just a technology perspective, right? And so, what am I talking about today? It is, of course, something you guys have heard me talk about quite a bit. It's the DS Audio optical cartridge and the DS Audio corresponding optical cartridge decoders. And then, of course, also included the DS Audio optical encoder made by none other than Ed Meitner of EMMlabs. And so how this whole thing kind of came to be, really I have to thank Ed for it, right? Ed and I have known each other for 20 years. I met him at one of the Sony DSD parties back in the day when, DSD was the big thing, the next big thing coming after CD. And we've kept in touch, obviously. And he called me up. This was actually, I saw him at the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest in 2019. They had a room, an EMMlabs room. He had a SME Model 15, I think, with an optical cartridge from DS Audio. And he said, Danny, you got to listen to this. This is very amazing stuff. I'm getting fully behind it. I'm developing some products. And so when it comes from a guy like Ed Meitner, who's obviously an institution of intellect, knowledge, and genuine engineering prowess from a audio perspective, you know that there's some meat on that bone, right? Because Ed would not invest his valuable time, efforts, energy, resources into developing something that really isn't truly something next level, right? And so that's how the whole thing came to be. Obviously, last year was kind of a wash with COVID and all that. And at the beginning of the year, I reached out to Garth Lear, who, with his company Musical Surroundings, is the U.S. distributor and the Canadian distributor for DS Audio. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, the DSE1 and the DSW2 were on the way to SonicFlare Studios. And just quick reference for price, the DSE1 with its corresponding decoder box retails for $2,750 in the US. The W2, the cartridge is $4,500 US, and the optical decoder box is $8,500 US. So a total system price of right around $13K. And then, obviously, as I had to, I figured out that, this review would not be complete without having access to the Mac Daddy of DS Audio product, which is, of course, the latest generation Grandmaster cartridge, and Ed Meitner's EMMlabs DSEQ1 decoder box that he sent me along the way, which, of course, one of the beauties of DS Audio is that all of the systems are, they work with each other. It's a plug-and-play sort of system. And so you can very well use different manufacturers' decoder boxes. Hopefully, at some point we will have a choice of decoders to select from. And certainly if this review will have anything to do with it, we'll make sure that everybody that needs to know about this hears about it, because I think this is truly a disruptive technology that people need to get behind, right? But more on that later. So, a couple of things to point out. First, the DS Audio Optical Cartridge system is a completely analog-based playback system for your vinyl. There is nothing digital in here. It is completely analog. How the DS Audio Optical system works, unlike MC and MM cartridges, which are basically de facto standards today, is that unlike using a coil on an MC or a magnet on a MM cartridge, it uses a cantilever just like your standard MC/MM cartridge. It uses a stylus. Obviously, they make different types: Shibata, Micro Ridge, and all that stuff is the same, right? The way that the cartridge traces the groove in the record is exactly the same. Where the key difference is that the system that transcodes those movements into electrical energy is done through a photodiode system, LED diode system, or LED system, whereby there is a shading plate that sits on top of the cantilever, and the shading plate's movement is being detected by the photo LED, and that difference in output, right, the difference in how the shading plate moves against the background, that is being detected and translated into electrical energy. So right off the bat, you have a system that is really far less complex and susceptible to outside influences and forces, unlike a moving coil or a magnet system, right? And so that's, you then take that signal, goes into the optical decoder box. From there, it goes into your line level out to your preamp, and you get cartridge playback from your records. What is so special about this DS audio system vis-a-vis what I've come to know as my reference, which you guys probably know. I'm a big believer in Einstein Electronics. They're from Bochum, Germany, and I've really been around Einstein for the past 10 years. It's my reference gear that I use. I've obviously had a million things come in and out of my room and listening environment, and really haven't found anything that's better than Einstein, right? There's things that certain things that are done a little better from some perspective, a little better on other perspectives, but in the grand scheme of things, for what I'm listening for, I haven't found anything that's better than what I'm using, right? My reference gear. So everything that I review is always in light of and with the bias towards my Einstein reference gear, right? Because that's my bar and my barometer of ultimate performance. So much like with their electronics, my reference setup for vinyl playback is in fact the top of the line Einstein phonobox, dual phonobox, and it's served me very well. It sounds incredible, very explosive, very dynamic. You really feel a shove on records that have a lot of dynamic content. I think music in general obviously is very dynamic. It's very propulsive, and so that's the kind of sound that I like, right? That's the kind of sound that I'm looking for, and frankly, that's what music sounds like, right? So when I got the DS E1, which is the entry level cartridge, I installed it, you set it up like any other cartridge. I connected the little phonobox, which is this little guy here, right? Very very unassuming, like your sort of, what is this, about 7 by 5 inches, 7 by 6 inches, something like that. Standard box, right? I connected it, played the first cut, and I immediately picked up my phone and texted Garth Lear at Musical Surroundings. I said, "Holy shit, man, what the hell is this? This is incredible." The first thing that struck me was the speed, the agility, bass output, the resolution that was for a $2,700 system about on par with my reference Einstein gear, where the preamp alone is, I think it retails for about 14,000 these days, 15,000 maybe, and my Dynavector XV1, I've got a bunch of cartridges, obviously. Dynavector XV1 was one of them. The Lyra Atlas was another. And I was shocked, literally shocked, that this little entry-level system from DS Audio was basically competing with that level of high-end system, right? And, Garth responded, he goes, shocking, isn't it? Especially when you consider that it's coming from an aluminum cantilever that, typically is not something that you would associate with explosive dynamic sound, right? And so, obviously the W2 that comes with a boron cantilever, a micro ridge stylus, takes things musically with the corresponding larger box, which is, quite a bit more substantial than the entry-level model. So this is the W2's decoder box. Quite hefty piece, probably weighs in, 15, 20 pounds easy. Machined out of aluminum, solid block. I mean, this thing is substantial, right? So with that, you obviously get, it's like anything else really in high-end audio. You don't know what you don't know until someone tells you otherwise. And so directly comparing the two together, the same characteristics speak through, or come through, I should say, with the W2 and the corresponding decoder, but it's just a little bit more, right? You feel just a little more resolution, even a little more of a kick. There's more temporal resolution. There is more in the way of, soundstage opening up a little bit wider. Instruments take on a little bit more rich tone. So I think probably the biggest difference between the entry-level system and the W2 system is, I would say it's just a richer tone in general, right? The second thing that struck me, really, right off the bat, was the complete quietness of the system. Now, mind you, I come from Einstein. There's no hum. It's very well designed phono electronics. You get no hum. There's no, noise. There's no stuff taking out of the music. Signal to noise ratio, I think, is about 82, 83 dB with a big dual box phono stage. And so I come from an environment where already I am hearing what I believe to be the finest analog playback, certainly among the finest phono stages and the most quiet phono stages that I've ever heard, right? I mean, and I can tell you that I've heard, CH Precision stuff at 50K, other phono preamps that are, in between that price point. And it's sometimes really shocking to me at what people accept as being a quiet phono stage, when really it's just a humdinger with lots of noise, right? I mean, and automatically, by definition, if you have noise in the system, if you have hum in the system, it's taking away from resolution, because that's noise that the record then has to essentially be playing over, right, in order for you to hear all the fine resolution, et cetera, et cetera. And so, if I hear a humdinger of a phono stage, and someone tells me that is, they consider that to be reference quality, and listen to how amazing it sounds, I'm just like, okay, wow, I just don't get it. I'm sorry, right? So there's really two reasons, I think, fundamentally, why the DS audio system performs at the level that it does, right? And why it is so disruptive. I mentioned the first, which is It has a much simpler mechanical structure compared to a moving coil or moving magnet system. In addition to being simpler, it also is, it has an overall much lower mass. In fact, it's about 1/10 of the mass of a comparable MC or cartridge, right? Let me put that in perspective and why I think that is so critical and important. The G-forces, I'm not kidding, the G-forces acting upon a stylus in your record at about 10, 11K, you're looking at about 1,500 to 1,600 Gs of force acting upon that stylus. Now, we all hear the references, right? You know, Formula One car, you know, they're braking at 5 Gs. They're going through turns at 5 Gs. You know, it's like, wow, you know, holy cow, that's pretty crazy stuff, right? You know, space shuttle taking off. I remember when I was a kid, that was always the thing. Oh, it's 3G, dude. And, you know, certainly that's incredible, right? I mean, for a human being anyway, you know, F-16 jet, I think that can turn at, you know, 9 Gs or something. They're wearing those special suits to pump blood and make sure that, you know, they're protected and they don't pass out. But think about that. You know, you're going from 5, 9 Gs, whatever, 1,500, 1,600 Gs on such a tiny little footprint. You know, just thinking about it from a mechanical perspective, the lighter you can make that system and the lighter you can make the mass on that system, the better it's going to be, right? The more responsive it's going to be, the more quickly it's going to be able to change direction, start, stop, accelerate, etc. So that's the one thing. The second reason really has to do with the RIAA curve. And the RIAA curve, really as ingenious as it is, it's basically a noise reduction system, right, for vinyl playback. And so the problem with the RIAA curve is that between 500 and 2,000 hertz, it's least effective. It's just the way it is, right? It's least effective. And so when you have an MC or an MM system that's a velocity-based detection system, it accentuates, because the RIAA curve is least effective in that region, it accentuates noise, which happens to be in that frequency range, right? Whereas the DS Audio optical cartridge system is an absolute position detector system. And so in an absolute position detector system, it does not accentuate that groove noise that is in that 500 to 2K range, right? And again, that's just the way the RIAA curve is. It's phenomenal, right, at what it does, but it's just least effective in that 500 to 2K range. And so the first thing that people tell me generally outside of, you know, wow, this sounds incredible, they're like, man, I can't believe how quiet this thing is. It's really quiet, right? In fact, I had a couple of friends over after the Long Beach show, and a very good friend of mine who's mastered many records, has been in control rooms, etc., knows what he's doing, right, can really hear stuff. First thing he said, and we were playing quite elevated volume levels, first thing he said was, man, I cannot believe how quiet this is at this volume level, right? So, you know, look, I believe that particularly this entry-level system is incredible. I would run out to my dealer. I would run out to, you know, call the distributor in your country. If you don't have a dealer network or you don't know where to listen to it, hear it. Here in the US, obviously in Canada, it's Musical Surroundings, Garthlier. Worldwide, you know, take a look at the DS Audio website. By the way, DS Audio, please improve your website. You know, Aki, who runs DS Audio, and essentially, I forgot to mention that earlier, go figure. You know, he comes from an engineering background. His company was involved at the highest levels of developing photo LED systems for optical mice. And in fact, the principle of how the DS Audio cartridge works is very similar to that, right? Anyway, little segue. So run out and listen to this. It's truly amazing, right? Now, save the best for last. The Mac Daddy, the Grand Mac, right? The Big Mac. The Grandmaster and the DSEQ1. So Grandmaster, third generation cartridge. The big difference there between the third generation and second generation cartridge is that rather than just having a single shading plate that sits on the cantilever, there's now two shading plates, right? And so there's two photo LED sensors. There's two shading plates. They were able to reduce the mass of that system by 50% compared to the second generation shading plate. And so the mass ratio is even better than it was on the already amazing second generation system. And obviously with other improvements and stuff that they've made. Again, I mentioned it uses a diamond cantilever and a micro ridge stylus. And so with Ed's DSEQ1, let me just tell you, it is the single best, seriously no joke, vinyl playback that I've ever heard in my life. And I've heard just about everything there is. If you have the cash, if you're into the ultra high end, if you want the be all end all, your final phono setup, if you got $23,000 burning a hole in your pocket, the cartridge is $12,500. Ed's DSEQ1 is $12,500. If you have about, $25K, I guess. If you have $25K burning a hole in your pocket, let me tell you, it is unbelievable. Truly, right? Goosebumps. I've played music that I know intimately in and out of my 8,000 records, maybe more. Every record I pull, it's like, holy cow, I've never heard this before. I've never heard that before. Oh, wow, the soundstage is that much more wider. The tonality, the richness of the instruments, the percussive elements, all the things that speak to me generally, right? Again, going back to my comment earlier, music is dynamic, music is propulsive. It amplifies it to a whole new level, right? Some of the, to give you an example, some of the records that I used, so Canto Stefano, or I should say that's the name of the record, Fausto Mezzolela. Phenomenal record. Came out a couple of years ago, I think. Guitar work, masterful guitar work by this Italian performer. I've never heard of him before. It's on the Italian Phone label. When you hear him go through with his fingers on the strings, holy cow. It's goosebumps, man. I'm telling you. You listen to this, and you're literally like, wow. He's in front of me, right with the guitar. It's recorded so well and beautifully. Again, no noise, very quiet, unbelievable, right? Or a recent record that I just got, Ryuichi Sakamoto, right? Double LP, little plug, phenomenal. This album, it's a 2 LP set, obviously. It kind of goes from I guess it's got quite a range. It's a little ambient, a little down tempo, little almost like disco-ish sound in some cases. Very quiet, very dynamic. You play this even with the DSE1, and you're gonna be like, wow, this is insane, right? Again, where it matters to, especially I think like percussive music or electronic music, where you've got that precision inherently in the design of the music, so so as to say, it's just amazing, right? Another favorite of mine, Bill Henderson, Live at the Times restaurant. This was recorded in August 75, mastered by Bernie Grunman. You can still get this. I'll post a link below. I think Acoustic Sound still has this. My friend Ron Resnick recommended this and brought this over a couple of years ago. Live recording. It's literally just Bill Henderson and piano. And you hear, the ambience in the audience. You hear chatter. You hear someone, dinging their fork, or, they're picking up their glass of wine, and it's just all the little porcelain smashing together, over there, over here, And with all that, Bill Henderson singing, it's just unbelievable, truly. Majestic soundstage, layers and layers of depth. Like I said, those little spatial cues that you pick up. This record sounds fantastic on whatever you play it, but let me tell you, if you play it on this optical cartridge setup, it is a whole new level. Another favorite of mine, Sophie Mutter. This is with John Williams, and they're playing Star Wars tunes. And the first cut on here, Ray's theme. Just to give you an example of the bass output and the bass quality of this record and of this optical cartridge stuff. Just at the opening cut, there's like this giant electronic thump that you hear throughout, right? They've woven it into the song and the performance, and literally it shudders the whole house. Let me tell you, again, it's so hard to put this into words. It's so hard to frame this up either in a written review or a video review. You gotta hear it for yourself. Another phenomenal album, Matt Halsall. I played this a million times. It sounds incredible. The new 40-year anniversary Yello reissue double LP that just came out. Here's another great one, right? Evangelist, Blade Runner. This is the audio fidelity reissue from a couple of years ago on red vinyl. Hard to get these days, long out of print. Again, similar to the Ray's theme on the Star Wars soundtrack. There's some bass notes. I remember reading when Steve Hoffman mastered this. He posted that, he cut it wide open, no limiting, no cutoffs on the bass. The dynamics on here are just truly stunning. So, and then of course, hey, one more, Milstein, right? His violin, gosh, it sounds so sweet. It sounds so delicate, so intimate, right? I mean, it's truly, like I said, I could spend 6 hours talking about this here. Go listen to it for yourself. I'll leave you with one last, which you have to get. This is the 2LP Capitol reissue of Only the Lonely, Frank Sinatra. This came out a couple of years ago, I think, and it's just truly, I wasn't sure what to expect of this, to be honest. They did a phenomenal job with this, and again, you look at this all from the perspective of where we are today with MC and MM cartridges. They're the de facto standard. They've been around forever. Like much of high-end audio, what we have today is really a continuation of technologies that came out long before our time. This DS Audio optical cartridge system is a complete disruptor. I would encourage everyone who is in the design field, who is making phono stages, making phono cartridges, figure out a way to create a decoder for DS Audio cartridges, or work with Aki at DS Audio to figure out if, I don't know, if there's a licensing for the cartridge technology itself, or however that all works. I mean, I'll leave that to you guys, but get behind it, because this is those rare instances where everything comes together. You've created a disruptive technology that truly takes playback to the next level. So I'll leave you guys with that, right? Hope you like this review. There's so much more I can say, right? There's so much more I can talk about, but I'll leave it at this. Go and play it. Go and listen to it at your dealer, with your distributor. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. So anyway, hopefully you will have liked this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, taking 25, 30 minutes out of your busy days to check this out. We will chat soon, no doubt. Thank you. Bye.